All right, everyone. Welcome to the Tonto's Demise week. What week is it? Week 8 recap. Season's flying by. We are more than halfway done. Technically, we are halfway to the Tonto Bowl, seeing as how that is week 16. Some good matchups this week. A lot of playoff implications. Starting matchups, things happening, starting to take formation, shape themselves. Although I say that, but also it's like they're at the same time it isn't, because all the teams at the top of the standings this week pretty much lost. Hillbillies lost, Midgets lost, XL Entries lost, Shawshank lost, Dub C lost, Gags probably should have lost, and Ed Lager barely won, although that did give 10 XL Entries his loss. So, said Disco won, Darkwing won, Yinzer Jags won, Isotopes won. So all the teams that are at the bottom made a push to fight their way back up to the top. And we currently have, actually, Brian, in defeat, backed his way into first place, because the Midgets lost and Gags won. But he's tied. The record is tied there, and Ed Lager won. Said Gags just barely. He probably should have lost, but Tree Size had a 0. I don't know if you should have started Westbrook. I don't know if he got hurt or... I know he was hurt before the game. I'm not sure if he got hurt in the game or you shouldn't have started him. You start Christian Kirk, you win that matchup, and take down Gags there, who's been struggling past couple weeks. Arguably has two wins that he doesn't deserve, but win's a win. You got to beat your opponent. No matter what your score is, they have to score more than you, and if they don't, then they lose. But, Possum Magic could have had this one, and Ed Lager possibly he earned it. His team did pretty good, 180-some points, but very close. Came down to Monday night, and really one or two more catches from Devontae Parker, or something like that, could have changed the outcome of this matchup. So I will say you earned it, but that was a matchup that definitely could have gone either way. Taking advantage, though, I think, of Jay having some injury issues this past week here. So anyway, we had a lot of good matchups this week. No real blowouts, but most of the matchups were decided on Sunday going into Monday. We had 2 matchups yet to be decided. Like I said, Jay and Ed came down to Monday night there, and then the Isotopes versus Hillbillies kind of came down to Monday night. I think almost pulling off a Monday night miracle there for the Hillbillies. But how about I stop talking about whatever and get into the matchups here? So we always start with the defending champion. That is Yinzer Jags. He was going up against the Dub C Hooligans, trying to get to 4-4 and drop the Hooligans to 4-4. He was able to do so this week by about a 50-point margin. Final score here, 186.2 to 132.35. For Yinzer Jags, another kind of disappointing performance from Kyler Murray. Only 31 points from him this week. Because I know after last week he only had 22. A matchup perhaps you shouldn't have won, but you did. That's in the past, though. Let's let it go. The rest of your team seems like they did pretty well. Pretty consistent scores here. Down the rest of your lineup, we have your receivers, Hopkins, Woods, and Juju. Hopkins, 22, Woods, about 6, and Juju, about 21. Then your big free agent pickup is his name Ty Johnson? Yes. The replacement for Kerryon Johnson at the moment in Detroit, hoping that he would perhaps be a PPR stud, get you some catches, maybe a touchdown. A good matchup against the Giants there. But it was all Stafford and Golladay, I think, for the Lions this week. Only 4.8 points from your newly acquired Ty Johnson there. Devonta Freeman, 16, just over 16 points. Looks like he had 8 catches for 60 yards, so pretty much all of his stats came from receiving. Your tight end, Kittle, he went for 14.5, and then Kelsey in the flex. You will most likely be starting, said Kittle and Kelsey, that combo for the rest of the year, except for when Kelsey is on his bye in Week 12. It's going to be a pretty good combo there. We'll see what happens. They've been kind of subpar this so far since you had this combination, but there are 2 guys who can go off any given week, and if you get them to go off together in 1 week, you're probably going to be well on your way to a victory. Anyway, Kelsey in the flex, 16.3. Kicker was Myers from Seattle. Looks like a couple field goals, a couple PATs, about 13 points or so. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, couple turnovers, 8 sacks. They did pretty well. Yahoo says 23. Your score is bumped up almost 20 points there. So they must have been close to 40 was the actual score there for your Jacksonville Jaguars defense. But it was enough to get past Dub C. Hooligans this week. His buns did okay, not great, but I see several single-digit scores here, including a 0 in his lineup. Let's take a quick look. Tom Brady going for 41. Chark going for about almost 20. The 0 came from Brandon Cooks, who got concussed once again. I think that happens to him a couple of times a year. I'm just reading here real quick that the Rams are worried with his concussion history, so they probably won't be rushing him back into the starting lineup anytime soon, which probably means you're going to be putting Curtis Samuel into your lineup. Not a bad spot to be for you, I would say. Samuel definitely has potential to be pretty good on a week-to-week basis. At least probably as good as Cooks there, so we'll see what happens. You couldn't resist playing Larry Legend against Detling here. Unfortunately, he only got you 2.5 points. Your running backs, Freeman and Ronald Jones. Freeman a touchdown, 11.5 points there. Jones only 6.2. Zach Ertz, your tight end, only 4 points. Dorsett in the flex, 7.3. Elliott, your kicker, looks like only about 4 points. And then the New England Patriots defense, Yahoo says 26. I'm going to guess it was about 36 based on the point difference there, but yeah. Kind of only 36 points for the Patriots defense this week, getting you about 75 or so, I think, between Brady and the Patriots defense. I think their bye is coming up next week, so it'll be interesting to see what you do there. So you got Cooks going out. Fitzgerald's been kind of not doing too much. Be interesting to see what you do. So you plug Samuel in. You played only 2 running backs, started 4 receivers. You got Ingram, who's on a bye this week. You'll be able to get him back in there. And David Johnson, whenever he comes back healthy, you acquired him in a trade. So hopefully, you're hoping, fingers crossed, that you are able to make it into the playoffs, or at least Johnson is able to come back before that. I think his bye is week 12 too, so maybe they'll be pretty careful in terms of rushing him back. They just acquired Kenyon Drake from the Dolphins, so perhaps they might try to ease David Johnson back into it, maybe try to give him off until the bye week. You never know. Depends how serious his injuries are. Seems like he's constantly been battling an injury or whatever, some sort of injury this year. So most probably part of the reason why he's been passed around to several different teams so far this year. So, but yeah, a lot of it said 0 from Cooks, 3 from Fitzgerald, 6 from Jones, 4 from Ertz, 7 from Dorsett, 4 from your kicker. Those are all single-digit scores, and that's not going to be enough to get past most any opponent. As Git said, Yinzer Jags, he moves up to 4-4, dropping Dub C Hooligans to 4-4. Although Dub C here gets the last laugh because he is in 7th place, while Yinzer Jags are right below him in 8th place. All right, finally, not finally, we're just getting started. Gags to Riches versus Possum Magic. This one was pretty close. Don't think it came down. Don't think it didn't come down to Monday night. Was there anybody here from Sunday night? I'm not sure. The matchup was pretty much decided. Yeah, you had LaShawn McCoy. I don't think Tree had any Chiefs or Packers there. Yeah, I think that was the only one. And he was able to get you, McCoy was, enough points to get past Possum Magic this week, nearly pulling off the upset. Gags to Riches gets the win, 141.25 to 137.45. So only about a 4-point difference here. For Gags, another kind of disappointing performance from Phillip Rivers, only 30 points this week. Julio Jones, over 150 yards, no touchdowns though, but you'll take 10 for 152 and 28 points pretty much every week. Landry, 11.5, and then Keenan Allen, about 12.5. Running backs, Gurley and McCoy, 10.5 for Gurley, 8.3 for McCoy. Your tight end is Akins from Houston. You went with him after you traded away Kelsey, about 3 points, only 3 points from there. He's been a disappointment, real hit or miss. One of the weaker spots, I would say, in Gag's lineup, but I would imagine that since Fells hit the free agent market this past week, that I would rather have him than Akins. So most likely, we'll see what happens in a couple hours here later on tonight, in the middle of the night. But I fully expect that Gags will make some sort of play to have the better of the two, at least the higher potential scoring tight end from the Texans there, which is definitely Fells has definitely emerged as that guy. So we'll look to see if that's what happens here tonight, or if somebody sneaks in there and scoops him up for more than Gags is willing to pay. I doubt it, but I expect that that's what Gags is going to do here tonight, so we'll see. Anyway, flex spot, you went with A.J. Brown, 9 points there. Only 2 catches, but he did score a touchdown. Zerline, looks like about 5 or so. And then the Seattle Seahawks defense, Yahoo says 17. Your total was only bumped up about 6, so they must have been about 23 or so points there. But yeah, it was enough to get past Possum Magic, as he had Josh Allen going for about his usual 35 points. So the problem here, D.D. Westbrook, he got you 0. Probably would have liked... I don't know exactly what the injury was there. If he was too injured and you just didn't move him out of your starting lineup, or if he re-aggravated his injury during the game, if he actually did play, just unfortunately happened to score you that 0. Tough break on that one, said Christian Kirk. Also had him, I think he was coming back from an injury too, so that was kind of a toss-up, and unfortunately it just didn't go your way. Terry McLaurin, only 8 points. Beasley, 13 points. Running backs, Marlon Mack and Jordan Howard, 16 and 18 respectively. Hunter Henry, only 8.5 after his one big comeback explosion game where he went for 30 points. He's cooled off. He's gone down to 15 and now down to 8.5 there. Flex Josh Jacobs, just over 10 points. Lambo, your kicker, about 10 or so. And then the Colts defense, Yahoo says 9, but it must have been closer to 19 or 20 based on the point difference there. But yeah, Gags was able to get enough from LaShawn McCoy there, despite, I think, losing a fumble and then not being put back into the game in the second half there on Sunday night. Yeah, he was able to squeak out a victory here. Unfortunately for Possum Magic, so that 0 really cost you. And unfortunately, it's been that kind of season for Possum Magic, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. Unfortunately, again, Possum Magic, he drops to 2-6. He is in 12th place. He's got loss number 6, so one more, and he is pretty much toast. One more loss means he would have to win his last 4 games. He would have to double his current win total, which, let's just face it, that's probably not going to happen when you've only won twice at this point. And we probably will be clapping out Possum Magic here in the next few weeks here. But you surprised us a couple weeks ago. Had put up some decent scores here. Had some competitive matchups here. So, yeah, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Your team has been really hit or miss. Kind of overall, in general, a lot of disappointment there. But they have certainly shown that they are capable of knocking off anybody on any given Sunday here. So we'll see what happens if you can spoil a couple other people's seasons over the next few weeks here. Gags to Riches, he moves up to 5-3, and he is in 3rd place. All right, then we will do the biggest blowout of the week here was Darkwing Jet going up against Shawshank Athletics, and this one ended up being not even close at all. A couple big scores here for Darkwing Jet. He goes over 200 points this week, 206.2. To Shawshank Athletics, 117.8. All right, so yeah, nearly a 100-point victory there, about 90 or so. For Darkwing Jet, he had Goff go for 46.5. I forget who all the... he had a long touchdown bonus. I'm trying to think of who all had those long touchdowns this week. We had a couple of them, but Goff was one of them. Goff the Cup there. So he was actually closer to 50 points. Mike Evans, almost 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, almost 46 points there, pretty close to your quarterback score. Beckham Jr., only 10 or so. DJ Moore, 8.8. Your 2 running backs, Carlos Hyde and Tevin Coleman, 8.5 points for Hyde, but 4 touchdowns, over 100 yards for Coleman, 40.8 points this week. So you had 3 guys with 40-something, almost 50 there. Evan Engram, 14. Valdez Scantling, your flex, only 1.5. Fairbairn, your kicker from the Texans, looks like a couple field goals, about 10.5, maybe 11 points. And then the Raiders, the LAR, I keep thinking Raiders there for some reason, even though they're not the LA Raiders, they are the Oakland Raiders. There's the LA Chargers, and it's annoying. Los Angeles Rams defense, St. Louis Rams, Los Angeles Rams. Yahoo says 11. Looks like you bumped up about 10 points. Well, you had the long touchdown bonus there. So Yahoo says 11. Your actual defense score was probably 17, I would guess. Something like that. But yeah, well over, said over 200. Way more than enough to get past Shawshank this week, who I see, just like Dub C, a lot of single-digit scores in his lineup here. A couple low ones. Let's take a look at what he had. Russell Wilson, in a kind of surprising, disappointing matchup, or result here, I should say, at Atlanta. You would think that would have been a pretty juicy matchup going into it, fantasy-wise, that Wilson could have put up a huge score here. Unfortunately, he only went for 31.5. Your wide receivers, Tyler Boyd, Crowder, and Allen Robinson. Boyd, 12.8, Crowder, 5.4, and Robinson, 11.2. Your running backs, Fournette and Chubb, 20.5 for Fournette, 13.5 for Chubb. Your tight end this week was Everett from the Rams, only 3.5 points. You went with Corey Davis in the flex, only 3 points there. Zeke was on bye. Cooper was on bye. Mark Andrews was on bye. Your Ravens defense was on bye. So you had a lot of bye week issues this week, and we're probably expecting to lose anyway. At least you got blown out and didn't have to stress about any close matchups here going into like Sunday night or Monday night there. If there is any positive spin to defeat there, at least it was by a huge margin, and you didn't have to worry about the matchup after the 4 o'clock games there. Anyway, Sly, your kicker, 1 field goal, no PATs, about 4 points or so. And then the Tampa Bay defense lost the game against Tennessee. Yahoo says 9. Your point total is only 3 more than what Yahoo says. So their score must have been 12 because I don't think you had any long touchdown bonuses there. So, all right, yeah, for that, this matchup, Darkwing Jet, he avoids loss number 6, moves up to 3-5, although I see he is still in 11th place, while with the loss, Shawshank Athletics back to 500 at 4-4, he is in 6th place. Next, we have, how many matchups do we have left? 3. We had Disco going up against the number 1 Mighty Midgets, trying to knock him down from number 1. When you're in that spot, you've got a target on your back, and everyone is shooting arrows at you, trying to bring you down. And this week, Disco was able to do it, knocking off the Mighty Midgets, who are struggling with some injury and bye week issues this week. Perhaps was expecting to get an L, I should say, this week anyway, as Disco pulls off the victory over 200 points from him, 215.55 to 154.95 for the Midgets. For Disco, he had Aaron Rodgers he had a long touchdown, so just over 59. Cooper Kupp had a long touchdown, so he was at an even 41. So, yeah, that's over about 100 points there just from those 2 guys, meaning the rest of your team pretty much just had to show up to get you to the 200-point barrier there. Godwin, 10.5. John Brown, 10.5. Le'Veon, only 6.5. But Montgomery made up for it with his best game of the year so far by a wide margin, I think. More than double his best score so far this year. He goes for 27.7. The Bears actually decided to run the ball this week more than twice, and they get the results that you would expect, although they did end up, of course, losing the game on a missed field goal. Waller the Baller, only 2 for 11, but he did have a touchdown, 9.1. Marvin Jones in the flex, 6.2. Prater, about 9. And then your Minnesota defense, I believe you were talking about it on the lineup, that your actual total, Yahoo says 16, but I believe we said it was 37 because we made a clerk's joke there, as you should do anytime someone says the number 37. Yes, but you had 2 long touchdown bonuses there from Rodgers and Kupp, and then an extra 20 points from your defense. So that got you up over 200 there, enough to get past Mighty Midgets this week. He had Matt Ryan out with an injury, and he's going to be on bye this week, so you had to kind of plug Carr in for this week, for this week and probably next week coming up, since Ryan is on bye. Carr still put up a pretty decent score, considering you probably didn't really want, he's not the play that you want to have to make, but your hands were kind of tied here with the injury. But still, almost 45 points, a respectable quarterback score, that's for sure. Your receivers, Sutton, Ridley, and T.Y. Hilton. Sutton, 10.2. Ridley, 13. And T.Y., only 2 catches for 54 yards, 7.4 points. Running backs, Chris Carson, an even 15 points. And then probably expecting big things from Chase Edmonds. Unfortunately, he only scored you 3.3 points before going out with a hamstring injury. They play Thursday night this week, I believe, so he's probably going to miss that game. If not, time after that. Not sure the extent of his hamstring injury, how serious it is, but he could be. So he's definitely not going to be ready on a short week. I would consider him. So those hamstring injuries can be tricky. So we'll see if he's there for you next week. Should be interesting to watch. Tight end, you had Witten was on bye, so he actually made a pretty good plug and play here of Jonnu Smith, I believe is his name, from the Titans, as Delaney Walker was also out with an injury, and Smith, almost 20 points from him. So pretty solid plug and play there. You'll take 20 points from your tight end pretty much every week, I think. And then Eckler, not too much from him this week. Only 2 catches for 19 yards. He did score a touchdown, but that looks like that's where all of his stats came from. It doesn't look like he must have had any rushing stats there, because his 10.2, well, he must have had something there, because 19 yards, that's 9.9. He must have had just a couple rushing yards. Butker, your kicker, looks like about 4.5 or so. And then you got lucky as the Titans. I didn't even see what happened at the end of that game, but I think Tampa Bay thought that they won on a turnover or a pick six or something happened. But Tennessee ended up holding on to get the win here. Yahoo says 18. Excuse me. Looks like they had 4 turnovers, a couple sacks. They must have given up a ton of yardage, because Mike Evans had 45 points there. But Yahoo says 18. Your score is bumped up about 9 points from what it should be. So their score must have been close to like 24, something like 25, something like that. But yeah, you said you lost Edmonds. That hurt you there. Your wide receivers pretty much, Cooper Kupp single-handedly outscored all of your wide receivers. David Montgomery outscored your 2 running backs combined. You won at tight end. You won in the flex, but you lost in all the other spots there. So that isn't going to get it done. And Mighty Midgets drops to 5-3. Though can't be too upset, because he is still right up there in second place, while the Disco, he moves up to 3-5. He is in 10th place. All right, then we will let's do the last 2 matchups that went down to Monday night. This one was arguably the more interesting one to watch, because it came down to 10 XL entries versus Ed Logger. XL entries had James Conner and Devontae Parker versus Chris Boswell. The difference here, let's see, was about 30-32, which James Conner almost covered that by himself. If Ed had been finished going into Monday night, he would have lost this matchup, because Jay would have covered that 32-point spread there and gotten the win. But fortunately for you, you had Boswell kick a couple field goals, some 40-yarders, and a couple PATs there, and just able to squeak past you and get the win this week. One of you was going to drop to 4-4. One of you was going to get to 5-3. And fortunately for Ed, it was him. He final score 189.6 to 186.85. So just again, 2 really good scores. Scores are going to get are going to get you a win, probably more often than they are not. But unfortunately, that's just how the schedule goes. The matchups go. Sometimes you're going to play someone and get a win that you shouldn't. Sometimes you're going to play someone and get a loss when you're pretty sure at least deserved a win, or you would have. It seems it happens quite often, and it stings and it hurts every time that it does. Whenever you see that you put up a score that would have beaten most of the, if not all, of the people in the league except the guy that you played. It happens to all of us at some point in the season, if not several times each year. But yeah, we all feel your pain, Jay, because it happens. It's in the past, or at least probably many times this year. It's happened to all of us at some point here. But how about we should actually talk about the matchup? Ed Lager, let's take a look. You plugged in Daniel Jones because you had Lamar Jackson on a bye, and you didn't want to start Baker Mayfield at New England. Good decision there. He went for 62.5 points. Diggs, Lockett, and Mike Williams, your three receivers. Diggs 19.5, Lockett 16, and Williams just under 10. Saquon and Lindsey, your running backs, 28.5 for Barkley, 12.5 for Lindsey. Cameron Brate, the tight end, because Cook was out with an injury. Delaney Walker out with an injury. He got you 6.2. And O.J. Howard out with injury and out of favor, it seems like, with the Tampa Bay offense there. In the flex, Jamal Williams, another touchdown, 2 touchdowns from him this week, 18.5 points. And Boswell, he got you about 11.2 or 11.4, something like that. But yeah, really, one of those 40-yard field goals, you take them away, and this matchup goes the other way. But he did it, and that's all that matters. Buffalo defense, surprising kind of at home. They got upset by the Eagles. Looks like they had one turnover, a couple sacks. Give a lot of points and yards there, I think. Yahoo says 6. I believe that must have been the actual score, because we really only had to adjust your roster or your lineup for, let's see, it's only a 0.3 difference there. So yeah, Boswell's score must have been 10.3. So making it easy on me. Didn't have to really do any adjustments there for you. Then 10 Excel entries. Made this one close, but couldn't quite get there. Deshaun Watson, 57.5. Michael Thomas, 27.3. Golden Tate, 16.5. What's this guy's first name? Olabisi Johnson from the Vikings there. Picked him up, played him since Thielen was out. Only 4.5 points there. Sony Michel, 7.5. So James Conner, 27. But he comes out of... Your injury problems continue. I don't think James Conner has come out of any game this year without having some sort of injury to report there. And once again, happens again this week. Well, this time it's his shoulder. I believe he was having injury issues. Injury issues, knee issues, ankle issues, and now it's his shoulder. So be interesting to watch how that plays out through the rest of the week here. Because as we know, the Steelers already had their bye week. So any extra time for him to get healthy doesn't exist from here on out. So we'll see what happens there. And again, Excel entries having some injury issues already. As we described, he has two of his biggest guns so far this year, Thielen and Fuller, out this week with injuries there. So just nothing you can do about that. You got to fight through. Even though it was a narrow loss, you still put up a good score. So nothing to hang your head about there. Jay, tight end Jimmy Graham, 5 points. In the flex, you played Parker, just under 12 points. Crosby, your kicker, 1 field goal, a couple PATs, about 7.5 or so. And then the Bears defense. Yeah, that. Yeah, I just realizing now that the Bears defense, Pinheiro, is that his name? Makes that field goal, makes that 40-yard field goal. Instead of the loss, the Bears would get a win. That's a 6-point swing. And Jay, you would have won this matchup if not for that missed field goal. You probably already realized that, but I'm sorry to report that I just realized that. And it only makes the sting of that loss, my feeling for you, my empathy in this defeat, only makes it even worse there. So Yahoo says 10. The actual score must have been about 20 or so. They did all right, but getting that loss is really what swung the outcome of this matchup here. So, yeah, that's just how it goes. Ed Lager, he gets the victory. He moves up to 5-3. He's in 4th place. And then we have 10 EXO entries. He drops to 4-4. He is though right below Ed Lager in 5th place. All right, and finally, I believe this was the matchup of the week, and this was probably the matchup of the year so far. I don't think anyone was expecting it. I wasn't expecting it, but it kind of came out of nowhere. Springfield Isotopes taking on Hillbillies on PCP. I didn't get a chance yet to go back and look at some past records here to see if this was the highest losing score that we've had ever. I don't know about ever, but it's a pretty safe assumption that this probably is the highest losing score. Springfield Isotopes blow up this week for 241 points, 241.05 to Hillbillies on PCP, scoring an even 229 points. So, first of all, Brian, I guess I didn't even, did I mention the music at the beginning? Me, it was Mr. Jones, since a little reference there to Aaron Jones, me and Aaron Jones, his long touchdown, possibly the turning a screen pass into a 67-yard touchdown, the play that made probably the play that was the most influential difference making here in this matchup. The point difference going into Monday night was about, 41 or so, with the Isotopes still having Vance McDonald to play, and Hillbillies having the Pittsburgh Steelers defense in a juicy matchup at home against the Miami Dolphins. Although this one started out with the Dolphins jumping up to a 14-0 lead. Unfortunately, that's all that they could muster. No more points. They started piling up turnovers and didn't really do too much at all after that. And definitely, I was watching the score, on the scoreboard there, keeping an eye on how many first downs the Dolphins have, how many rushing yards, how many passing yards the Dolphins have. And this one could have been a lot closer. So the Steelers, the Dolphins jumped up. They were under 50 rushing yards for most of the game. Near the end, they jumped that up over 50. So that knocked 3 points off of your score. Got too many first downs. They only had one more first down. They had 16, so that was only one more than would have gotten you 3 points. So you lost a couple points there. Fortunately, said Vance McDonald got about 5 points to make it a cushion there, but definitely this one was a lot closer than I think some of us thought that it was going to be. I know, talking to Justin at work tonight, he said that he was secretly rooting for Brian just to see what the result would have been. From my perspective, if I had scored 240 points and lost this week, I would just tell you right now, especially said having 236 going into Monday night, and only your defense left to go, instead of 40-some point difference there. Ended up, if I would have ended up losing this matchup, I would just tell you it would have been devastating to the psyche. For Fortunately, it didn't happen. But I will say to you, Brian, though, said you slid into first place despite the loss there. But you scored 230 points. Yeah, you lost, but this is what it's going to take, guys. Speaking to the rest of you right now, this is what it's going to take down this team this year. Your team is going to have to show up. You might not need 240 some points, 250 points, but your team is going to have to show up or you're going to get a loss. So, yeah, so perhaps the matchup, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But I would have to say that this was probably the matchup of the year so far. I believe it was the first 200 versus 200. We didn't have any of those yet. Two people against each other with over 200 point scores there. So yeah, this was pretty exciting and fun, I think, for most of us to watch, and it's kind of surprising for some of us as well. Anyway, let's actually get into what happened here. Springfield Isotopes get the win. Drew Brees comes back from his injury. Kind of was expecting that he wouldn't play, that the Saints would be dumb to play him when they have the bye week. He's 40 years old. Why would you not, coming back from an injury, why would you not give him an extra week's rest? You've won every game since he got injured. So, yeah, why not give him another extra week to rest and get practice time in? But I guess they know better than I do. And in this case, they were definitely right. Drew Brees goes for 64.5 points. Receivers, Tyreek Hill, Julian Edelman, and Tyrell Williams. Tyreek, 14. Edelman, 27.5. Excuse me. And Tyrell Williams, just over 18 points back from his injury. Running backs then, Aaron Jones and Melvin Gordon. Said Aaron Jones did most of his damage actually in the air. He had two receiving touchdowns, over 150 receiving yards, including that long touchdown. So his score was about 47.5 there from Aaron Jones. Melvin Gordon gets a touchdown, 30 yards or so, 11.5 points from him. It's Vance McDonald just under 5. Tariq Cohen in the flex, 7.5. Zane Gonzalez, about 12 points from him. And then the Saints defense, Yahoo says 10, but I believe the actual score, I want to say 32, something like that. It jumped up maybe 31, 34. It jumped up at least 20 points there from what Yahoo says. They did pretty good in terms of limiting the yardage there to the Arizona Cardinals. So, yeah, enough to get past Hillbillies on PCP despite a big score here. Let's take a look at what he had. Stafford goes for almost 54. Receivers, Alshon Jeffrey, Kenny Golladay, and Emmanuel Sanders. Jeffrey only 10.5. Golladay, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns from him, 28.5 points. Emmanuel Sanders, his first game with the 49ers. Couple catches, not too many yards, but he did score a touchdown, 12.5 points there. Your two running backs, Dalvin Cook and McCaffrey, 28 points for Cook, 30.5 for McCaffrey. So to get back to, again, what I was kind of saying about you're going to have to bring your A game if you're the rest of the year, I think, if you're playing Hillbillies on PCP. Because, guys, let's face it, Cook and McCaffrey, you're riding the McCaffrey train this year. No shame in admitting it. We all know it. I kind of did it last year with Todd Gurley for most of the season. We'll see how far the McCaffrey train carries you. I'm pretty sure he's on pace for like historically high fantasy totals for a running back here. But yeah, dude, everybody, Brian is getting 50 points. You can pretty much pencil him in for 50 points every week from those two spots, those two players. I mean, that's pretty much the way it's been. It's ridiculous. It's been like that all year long. Cook and McCaffrey have been lighting it up. And when you're getting 50 points from those two guys, I think I said this before, all you really need is the rest of your guys to just show up and perform. And you're going to have a score that is going to get a win more often than it isn't. Uh, so then let's take a look. You have Austin Hooper, who of course has been, I believe, locked at you. You didn't know what I don't think anyone expected him to be the number one tight end this year, even though the tight end position was a real question mark. I think overall in general, besides Kelsey, maybe a couple others, there were a bunch of keepers. Tight ends were keepers this year. So the draft pool was pretty shallow in terms of tight ends here. I don't think anybody really stood out. We were all throwing darts if you didn't have one of those guys as a keeper, as what tight end you're going to have this year. And Hooper's got to be the number one tight end this year. So you kind of lucked into that. Another 18.5 points from him this week. Derrick Henry in your flex, only 7.5 points. Lutz, your kicker, about 5 or so. And then the Steelers defense, as we know, Yahoo says 22. I believe, what was the actual score? Like 34. Of the 41 points you needed, they got 34. So yeah, they could have gotten 40. So had one less first down and a couple less rushing yards, and they would have gotten the 40. So it was good. It was really close. They got a turnover, so a sack fumble near the end of the game there. So every time there was a turnover, I was like, "Oh, stop! Just don't." You watch the last drive of the game in garbage time. There, just watch. Fitzpatrick is going to throw a pick six, and I'm going to end up losing somehow. But fortunately for me, it didn't happen this week. So Brian, you're upset. I know it happens, but everything else about this matchup, I've said just like Jay's team, no reason to hang your head on this one. Said you backed your way in the first place. 230 points. Yeah, it hurts, but this is, like I said, this is the barometer for everybody else. Guys, I certainly didn't expect to do it this week. Was able to do it, just kind of lucked into it, but luck is way more important, I think, in general than skill. You get to pick your players, but you never know exactly what they're gonna do when these huge scores are gonna pop up here. But yeah, it was just a great matchup all around, fun for everyone to watch, hopefully. And yeah, said Brian, yeah, you're upset now, but your outlook remains quite positive though. So don't get too upset about this one. Yeah, it stings, but yeah, look at it in the grand scheme of things. That perhaps we will look upon this matchup as the most entertaining one of the whole season. Hopefully not. I'd love to see some more fireworks here down the road, but we'll see. All right. What else is there to talk about? The knockout pool. I think, Josh, you were eliminated this week with your 117 points. So I believe I put it on the lineup after Sunday night, since Josh, you were done, and your score was already guaranteed to be the lowest of the surviving players. Excuse me. So who do we still have in the knockout pool? Hillbillies on PCP, Disco, Mighty Midgets, and Dub C Hooligans. Those four. Yeah. Week 8, so there's 4 teams left. Dub C, Disco, Midgets, and PC Hillbillies. So we'll see what happens. Hillbillies, if they make it, I'm sure they'll take the easy way out and try to split that pot with whoever makes it there. But I encourage you, whichever one of you happens to make it to week 11 for the knockout pool, if it's you versus Hillbillies, be a man, take the whole thing or take nothing at all. Make him earn it. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for week 8. It was a great week to watch. A lot of things that were interesting. We muddled the standings even more. We have 4 teams at 5-3. we have 5 teams, 4 teams at 5-3, 5 teams at 4-4, 2 teams at 3-5. Possum down there at 2-6. We can probably write him off for the rest of the year. But as for the rest of the league, only a 2-game difference with 4 games to go, 5 games to go. 5 games. Between first place and 11th place, only a 2-game difference here, though. So points are going to come down probably to the wire here and be very important. Your overall point total. Let's see. Everyone's around 1,400. Some people are into the 1,500s, closing in on 16. A lot of us, though, are in the 13 and 1,400 range. So we've got a lot of bye weeks coming up. A lot of big players who are going to be missing games here, though. So making it tricky to get a win at the time of the season here, where everyone's going to need a win. Going to be hopefully it's shaping up to be excuse me again, pretty exciting race to the playoffs here, though. So again, I think I've said in previous recaps here, still there is no one running away with it this year, which is fun to see. Most of the teams at the top they are vulnerable. I said Mighty Midgets. Injury issues, his quarterback, some bye week problems. He's vulnerable. He fell from number 1. Gags to Riches, having some problems. He started off hot, made some trades, kind of tinkering with his team a lot. His team has definitely cooled off the past couple weeks. After he started off the season steamrolling people. Let's take a look at him. He's been right around 135. He's been around 140 the past 3 weeks here. After he had 250 pointer earlier in the year. But yeah, Gag's team has definitely cooled off. He's had some injury problems. He's got some guys coming back, especially Devontae Adams. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, right now, Gags, I would say, is vulnerable. Ed Lager, you've got some issues. Hit or miss team there. Some of your players, you got some injury problems, making some trades. We'll see how that goes for you. Got rid of Tom Brady, took Lamar Jackson from Dub C. 10XL entries. Again, he's been hit with a lot of injuries here. Fuller, Thielen, James Conner now. So even though you still put up a big score this week, you definitely have some vulnerabilities. Dub C hooligans. Besides the Patriots defense, Tom Brady can be pretty hit or miss there. You never know from week to week with him. Just take a look at the teams here real quick. Where are you? Dub C hooligans. Yeah, but all the guys between Brady and New England there, your buns, kind of questionable in terms of, so nothing really splashy. Ingram's pretty solid. You're hoping for David Johnson to come back sooner than later. But other than that, there's really not a lot. You need some of those guys in your roster to exceed expectations, for you to have real success going forward there. So really, I would say, Yinzer Jags, he's got all those defenses. His bench is very shallow. Has really hadn't had to make any serious changes to his lineup so far this year. No injury problems for him. Plugging and playing. Just having just enough to cover his bye week problems so far this year. So anything could happen with him, even though he hasn't had much to worry about this year. Not to put any sort of jinx on you or anything, but it's kind of resulted in, you don't have anything spectacular or splashy. Your team's been solid. But said 4-4. They're just they're not running away with anything here. Same thing, Isotopes, been really hit or miss on a lot of the weeks here. So having some injury problems too. Disco coming back from the bottom there, trying to move his way back up. Plenty of good players in his lineup. He's going to be competitive every week. Darkwing Jet. He's got a great trio of receivers, Evans, Beckham Jr., DJ Moore, somebody else. I think he was starting 4 receivers for a little bit there. Who's his other guy? Valdez-Scantling. I lost Kerryon Johnson. That hurts. So you're kind of unsure who your flex is going to be. You might be putting Singletary in there. He might be starting to come around finally for you. But yeah, Darkwing Jet is going to be competitive every week. I just don't see any teams who, we all have vulnerabilities. We all have weaknesses. Which makes things more interesting to watch. So I'm not going to go here, point out, I'm not going to run down everybody's team and say, oh, you have this wrong, you have this wrong, you have this wrong, and not say anything about my team like they're so great. They're not great. They've been hit or miss, a lot of injury problems. They're vulnerable, just like everybody else is. And I think I said on the lineup too, we're 8 weeks into the season. If I had to pick who the 6 teams are going to be that make the playoffs, and the 6 teams that aren't going to make the playoffs as of right now, I think Hillbillies are in. I think Possum Magic is out. And the other 10 of us, I got no freaking clue who the 5 teams are going to be right now that don't make the playoffs. I think as of right now, with the end of week 8, if I had to guess, teams that are in the top 6 right now versus teams in the bottom 6, I would guess that 3 of those teams are going to drop from the top to the bottom, and 3 of those teams are going to move up from the bottom to the top. And we're going to have a pretty significant standings shuffle as we race towards the playoffs here. So I'm excited to see what happens. Doing a little bit of extra time here, ranting a little bit, because there's going to be no podcast this week once again, because it's Halloween on Thursday, and then Friday, bachelor party festivities will be beginning for Detling there and going all day Saturday, so everybody's going to be pretty busy. But that being said, since there's not going to be a podcast, let's take maybe a slightly deeper dive into the matchups here in week 9 than I usually do here. We're going to have Springfield Isotopes going up against Ed Lager. Isotopes trying to get win number 5, knock Ed Lager to 5-4. That'll be an interesting matchup as Isotopes try to climb their way back up, while Ed Lager has been kind of slipping the past few weeks. Even though he won last week, I think he was 3-0. But he's been kind of slipping. We'll see what happens there. The only matchup of 2 4-4 teams, I should say, this week is Shawshank versus 10 XL entries. Josh versus Jay. One of you is going to fall below 500. And right now, the projections are for Josh to win by 50 points, I see here. Let's take a quick look if Jay just has something with his bye week issues or anything like that. Looks like Josh pretty much has his full team ready to go. You got Thielen in your lineup. You got James Conner in your lineup. So no Michael Thomas this week. He's on bye. You put in the Packers defense. That's probably not a bad play. Said Will Fuller. Looks like he's going to still be injured. So yeah, it will be interesting to see, though, if Thielen is actually able to come back and play for you this week. Or if Connor, how bad his injury is. Said the projection is 180 to 137, 183 to 137 right now. So pretty heavily in favor of Shawshank Athletics. But yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting one either way. Let's see. Said again, pretty much all of us said we're 5-3 or 4-4. So we got Disco going up against Possum Magic. So that one don't want to call it right before the matchup, but Disco looking to get to 4-5 and keep his playoff hopes alive, his season going. He's favored by about 35 points according to Yahoo here, but of course those projections don't take everything into account here. You can't really go by them. But it is not looking good for Possum Magic. And Disco is probably excited to get the Possum matchup at this point in the season when wins are becoming more and more vital here. Then we've got the Dub C Hooligans trying to get back to winning ways, going up against the now first place Hillbillies on PCP. Looks like about a 20-point margin here in favor of Hillbillies. We'll take a look. You have Dub C's got David Johnson in his starting lineup as of right now. They go on Thursday night. I would imagine that's probably not going to happen. You're going to have to plug somebody in there. You got the Patriots going against the Ravens. That could be a tough matchup here for you with your quarterback and your defense. It's going to be an interesting matchup here but Dub C really probably needs this one to get back on track, while Hillbillies tries to bounce back and really not many weaknesses here. Looking up and down his lineup. Next we'll have Darkwing Jet going against the Mighty Midgets. About a 10-point spread here for Mighty Midgets. Take a quick look here. Again, no Matt Ryan for Midgets. He'll be going with Derek Carr. He's really nothing to complain about too much. Said Chase, you would like to have Chase Edmonds. For Midgets, said you really would like to get a win this week, get number 6 here. But Edmonds is going to be out with an injury. No Calvin Ridley, no Matt Ryan. Kamara on a bye too. You're hoping to get through this week. I believe Kamara is supposed to come back from his injury after this week, so you're just hoping to hold on till your big guns come back from injury and bye weeks and get you through to a couple wins here over the last few weeks of the season. While Darkwing Jet, he's probably still the underdog in this matchup because he has no defense yet for this week. We'll see what happens there. Kenyon Drake probably stumbling into him having a starting role this week, although it's against the 49ers defense. Not sure that's the most ideal matchup for you there. But yeah, pretty solid lineup up and down here. So Darkwing Jet will still... So Disco and Darkwing Jet, they're 3-5, but they're still going to be formidable opponents every single week, no matter where you are in the standings here. Then we've got finally the rematch of the Tonto Bowl last year. Yinzer Jags versus Gags to Riches. Said Yinzer Jags try to climb above 500, possibly for the first time this year. And Gags to Riches trying to not fall to 5-4, get win number 6 here. Let's see. No Gurley, no Julio, no Latavius Murray for Gags here. He's got his defense going against the Dolphins, so not too bad. For Yinzers, no Robert Woods, no Devontae Freeman. You're going with the Carolina Panthers defense. You got no real problems here. You got Hopkins, Smith-Schuster, plugging Robbie Anderson against the Dolphins. That might be all right for you. Gags is hoping Devontae Adams comes back this week. Hoping Breida plays on Thursday night, though it's not looking good there for you. You might have to plug somebody in to your running back spot there. And I don't think you have, looking at your bench, you don't have anybody to plug into that running back spot if Breida, if he doesn't play on Thursday night here. So we'll see what happens there. All these matchups going to be real significant in terms of muddling the standings even more. This is going to be a great week to watch. I'm excited for it. All these matchups, teams going against each other. Everyone needs a win, and only half of us are going to get them this week. So even though we're going to be busy, having a good time, partying pretty much all weekend, it's going to be fun to see what happens here, though. as the said, we only got we're 5 weeks till the playoffs start. Nobody said nobody has more than 5 wins. You got to get to 7 in 5 weeks here. So, I'm winded. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens this week and how the standings shape up. Still hoping for a win. Yeah, I said I don't know who the playoff teams are going to be, who the playoff non-playoff teams are going to be. It's great. I love it. It's still all up in the air pretty much, and so yeah, we're looking forward. Hopefully, you're also looking forward to seeing how things shake out, because I have no idea what's going to happen. So no one's pulling away with it this year. Always nice to see, and hopefully things get even more muddled as we're recapping here next week. So, all right, that's enough. Anything else that I should missed or need to talk about? I don't think so. All right, guys, we're gonna have a great weekend. Probably will be seeing most of you, and yeah, good luck to everyone this week. Hopefully, no significant injuries to anyone's team. Everyone performs as everyone meets or exceeds expectations this week, and look forward to being back next week. So, yeah, thanks for no matter whether you're listening or watching or whatever it is you do. Thank you for getting to this point, if you got to this point, and we will be back here again. Hopefully, no one ends up in jail or anything ridiculous this weekend. We're gonna have some fun, I think, and we will be back here next week. No podcast, so just till you have to see my face again next week. Yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Good luck this weekend, and yeah, thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you back here again next week. All right, thanks, guys.